Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. I'm Joe Vanourney. Spartacus, House of Ashur, the newest chapter in the Spartacus saga, debuts with 2 episodes on Starz, December 5th. And today we're joined by two of the lovely ladies from Spartacus, House of Ashur. We have Claudia Black, who plays Cossutia, and India Shaw Smith, who plays Viridia. Ladies, welcome to Cherry the Geek TV.
Hello, thank you.
Hello, hi.
Claudia, hello. Claudia, some of your more iconic roles on things like Farscape and Stargate SG-1, you always start off with your characters as antagonists who later morph into the heroines of the story, right?
Mm.
Uh, do you like getting to play both sides like that? Do you have a preference? And in the case of Spartacus House of Ashur, Cossutia, she starts off, she's really nasty. Do you think she will progress into the heroine of the story, or is she a lost cause?
I think everyone has the opportunity to transform, such as the way that Stephen has structured this world, so that honestly, all these characters could go anywhere. Um, I have had to make peace with the fact that I'm sort of like an agent of change as a performer. They bring me on to shows when they're like, we want something exotic and different, but we're not sure what. Oh, that seems different and interesting. And so I'm sort of experimental in that sense. Stephen tonight was very familiar, that said, with my body of work, and he very much consciously chose to work with me and actually was inspired to work with me and wrote the role with me in mind. And he said that that's a pretty surprising and miraculous thing to write a role for someone, and it happened twice for him. He wrote Chorus with Graham McTavish in mind and Cossutia with me in mind, and he managed to have both of us come to say yes and embody them. But I'm also just not a white picket fence girl. I'm just an interesting, complex, layered woman who's deeply flawed, and that way I get to embody these characters who are, I think relatable and have a huge potential in their arc. So we'll see. I don't think anyone on this show is a lost cause.
India, we learned early on in the series that your character's husband was killed by Spartacus and his army before the series takes place. Did that act affect Viridia's psyche? And how does that guide her actions and her decisions as season 1 progresses?
Yeah, great questions. Absolutely. We see her, as you say, at the beginning of the series, she's in a period of deep mourning and she's become a recluse, essentially. And we see her, she's gone from being the head of her own household and a wife to suddenly regressing into being the child again and to living with her parents. And certainly all of this has impacted her psyche dramatically. She's a very pure, ethereal, good-natured, optimistic young woman, and certainly this has knocked her in a huge way. But I think then what's so fantastic about where we find her at this point in the story and how Stephen has written her is that it's the perfect moment of evolution where we see her. She's faced with being a widow, which she didn't expect, particularly at her age, knowing that there will be certain expectations placed upon her to remarry, to benefit the family, and that also she's no one's fool, and she knows the game that's being played around her. And I think this is a real moment that audiences can expect to see her ask, does she even want to engage in the game? And if she does, maybe does she want to play a different one? And what does it mean to be a young woman in this society where she's constrained by her position in it?
Let's talk about the power structure on the show, right? The show portrays Roman society with all the different maneuvering, backstabbing, etc., as the people in the society are trying to claw their way up the societal ladder. Uh, while the men on the show and in history certainly held those positions of power, we see that the women on the show are also maneuvering for power, even controlling the men in ways with manipulation, etc., and undercutting their fellow women in the Roman society. Talk about playing in that world and how your characters uh, are living in it.
It's interesting that the elite's weapons are really their words and their maneuvers, and in the ludus, it's their literal bodies and the weapons they're given. And I there was an Oscar Wilde quote, not verbatim, but everything is about power except sex. No, what's the quote? Everything is about sex except sex. Sex is about power. So I think we see that playing out on this series. What weapons do they have? What tools and instruments do they have for upward mobility? And it's, you know, the each character gets placed in these compromising situations where they have to make a choice about how they will survive and can they think multiple moves ahead. And I think that's one of the interesting things about Cossutia is she's really thought this through. She's being very strategic and she's constantly shifting and adapting and changing. But it's also wonderful to see as a performer the places where she gets put on the back foot and she's not able to entirely predict everything, and that makes, you know, it raises the stakes and makes it very unpredictable and unsafe for her. So she's always, I think, in this state of hypervigilance, trying to maneuver and get to safety for both she and her daughter.
Well, we can see Cossutia and Viridia and Spartacus, House of Ashur, 2 episode premiere starting December 5th on Starz. Claudia and India, thank you so much for chatting with us today on Cherry the Geek TV.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.